Breaking news from WRAL. Coverage you can count on.
Breaking news takes us to West Raleigh this morning. You can see a semi-truck overturned the Wade Avenue ramps to 440 eastbound. Those ramps are blocked. I'll let you know how to get around that mess.
And take a look at our dense fog advisory, our southern and eastern counties, but all of a sudden in Wade County, we're starting to see some of that fog creep in. I'll show you what it will look like when you head out.
Plus, Trump tariff fallout. As Canada has retaliated and Mexico and China are slated to do the same, we look at what the new tariffs mean for you, plus the action leaders are taking today, hours before the tariffs go into effect. And Helene relief announcement, what we're expected to learn today as people in western North Carolina desperately need help. We're also talking about the big night at the Grammys. We've got a recap of some of the most memorable moments from that evening. And yes, even that Beyonce reaction. A lot of people may have had that same reaction, but we're going to be watching all that this morning here on WRAL News on Fox 50. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Chris Lovingood. I do want to go to Elizabeth Gardner because, Elizabeth, elephant in the room, you got a foggy Dix Park right behind me, and the same is true elsewhere.
We're seeing a lot of that fog. It started pretty early this morning along I-95 and south of us. And just in the last 20 or 30 minutes, it started to creep in as far west as Raleigh. Right now, looking at quarter-mile visibility at Rocky Mount and Wilson. Goldsboro is below a quarter of a mile. So is Clinton, as well as Fayetteville. Southern Pines has been kind of back and forth, but Raleigh's been pretty clear. But we're starting to just see a little bit of that moving into the western part of the county, eastern part of the county, And it's now affecting downtown Raleigh. This is a look from our Jimmy V camera down Fayetteville Street, and it is definitely foggy out there. 42 degrees is our temperature. Our wind is right now southeast. We're going to see a big warm flow this afternoon, warming things up, but it's still pretty chilly. 38 Southern Pines, 36 Roxborough, elsewhere low to mid 40s. We'll see sunshine by lunchtime, and temperatures will warm to nearly 70 degrees. And then we've got just kind of a wild swing with our temperatures. I'll explain that coming up, Ken.
8:02, Elizabeth. We're staying on top of that breaking news in West Raleigh this morning. We're talking about an overturned semi-truck right there on those ramps from Wade Avenue onto 440 eastbound, and that's where we find WRAL's Brett Neese monitoring that scene for us. So what do we know so far, Brett?
Well, Ken, this truck overturned a short while ago, but it's going to be out here for quite a while as crews have now arrived to try to assess the damage and try to figure out how they can make this right side up and get it out of here. But I'm going to step out of the way. We're going to zoom in a little bit. First, we'll zoom in on the end of the truck where you see a couple of those workers where the opening is. They've been carrying some of the product out of the trailer itself. It's some sort of herbicide, a weed killer that the truck was carrying this morning when this overturned. But then on the front end of the truck, you can see more damage, of course, along the trailer, but on the front end of the truck, we do see the couple of tow crews that are here as they work to figure out how they're going to attach some cables to this thing and make it right side up so they can get this out of here. But right now, the ramp from Wade Avenue East to 440 East continues to be shut down, and it will be shut down for at least the next hour or so while they figure that out. It's going to be a while, Ken, before they can move this out of here. Everybody that's going to work right now is going to have to find a different route.
That's very true, but as you can see from Brett's shot, the traffic is getting through on the Beltline proper. But as we widen out the view, you can see the delays stretching all the way back to Ridge Road. Best bet is to get off on Blue Ridge Road or even Edwards Mill near the Nova Center and work your way around Wade Avenue to avoid that area. The other big news this morning, the foggy conditions down east that we've been reporting, likely contributing to the congestion that you're seeing on the southern loop of the Beltline as well as the northern loop of the Beltline. You're looking at a 3 to 5 minute delay. Also down east, we're seeing it as well, starting from Wendell Falls Parkway all the way to past Smithfield Road as you get closer to Nightdale this morning. Here's what it looks like, courtesy of a live cam network, I-87 and Wendell Avenue and I-87 and Wendell Falls Parkway. You can barely see the traffic as it gets into those foggy conditions. Taking a look at other major routes coming into the capital city, here's what we're looking at. 8 minutes coming in from Wake Forest this morning, so give yourself a little bit extra time. Over in Durham, very little to no delays to report on any of the major routes. You see I-885 is the only outlier there, probably looking at a 3 to 5 minute delay. You're getting ready to head out the door this morning. Tune us in on the radio, 101.5 HD3. You can listen to us anywhere in the Triangle.
Today, Governor Josh Stein is expected to announce his budget proposal for Helene recovery in western North Carolina. Stein will be in Henderson County this morning to unveil that plan. Republican and Democrat lawmakers say more help is needed, but they can't seem to agree on how to fund it. We spoke with one volunteer who says this is not a partisan issue. She says thousands of people need answers right now.
They might need food. They might need propane. Maybe their basement was flooded and all the stuff is still sitting out in the yard. We've seen a few of those people. A lot of people are older and they can't do it themselves.
Stein is expected to make his announcement at 11 o'clock this morning. And yes, WRAL will be covering that announcement online and on the air. Just tune into our newscast from 4 to 7:30 this evening for the full breakdown of what's included in the Helene recovery plan. Today, President Donald Trump will meet with the leaders of Canada and Mexico, and that's set to happen hours before new tariffs are set to take effect. And those tariffs could mean higher prices for you at the grocery store. Let's bring in WRAL's Kelsey Coffey. She joins us live from the North Carolina Automobile Dealers Association. Kelsey, the auto industry is one of the biggest industries in our state that could be affected.
Yes, Chris, we are watching the auto industry right now. The North Carolina Association of Automobile Dealers here and several other groups are just bracing for this impact. President Trump is putting a 25% tariff on imports from Mexico and Canada. Now, those countries plan to put tariffs on the products we sell to them. Today, we could learn just how high those tariffs could be. NC State economist Mike Walden says North Carolina exports up to $13 billion worth of products to Canada and Mexico every year. He predicts these tariffs could lead to higher inflation. We could see prices go up at the grocery store and maybe even the gas pump if oil from Canada is included in these tariffs. Now, President Trump is set to meet with leaders from Mexico and Canada today before those tariffs are set to go into effect at midnight tonight. Kelsey Coffey, WRAL News, live in Raleigh.
New this morning, Goldsboro police say a man is in critical condition because he was shot while trying to break into a home. Officers were called to a home on West Oak Street just after 5:30 last night. At the same time, a man who was shot arrived at UNC Health Wayne. Now, police determined the man was shot again while trying to break into a home, and no one else was hurt. Police say the man knew at least one of the people in the house. Officers say the shooting was an act of self-defense. The Wake County Sheriff's Office wants you to come forward if you know anything about a shooting that killed a man. Investigators say 38-year-old Sean Rouse was shot in the driver's seat of a car. He was found on Stagg Trail near Wendell on Saturday. And video right here from the WRAL Breaking News Tracker shows two cars that appear to have crashed into each other. But it's not clear which car Rouse was driving or whether the driver of the other car was involved in the shooting. Deputies believe this was a standalone case and there is no threat to the public. This morning, staffers with the U.S. Agency for International Development received a notice to not go to headquarters today. That happened not long after Elon Musk said the Trump administration agreed to shut it down. Over the weekend, U.S. aid placed their top security leaders on administrative leave. Musk is the head of the Department of Government Efficiency. It's a non-federal agency tasked with identifying areas of government spending where cuts can be made. Early this morning on X, Musk called U.S. aid a, quote, criminal organization, and that he spent the weekend, quote, putting U.S. aid into the wood chipper, his words. Trump says Musk is doing a good job and criticizes U.S. aid, saying that it's, quote, run by a bunch of radical lunatics. Several sources with DOGE was working to say that DOGE was working to access U.S. aid systems, and that includes personnel files and security systems beyond the security level of some of the DOGE employees. Today, we'll learn more about the future of the Durham Convention Center. The Board of County Commissioners meets today to review the findings of a feasibility study. Now, this study suggests Durham needs to completely rebuild the convention center. That's if it wants to be competitive with other cities for events. And that could also include a new on-site hotel. The board's work session starts at 9 o'clock this morning. This week, we expect more votes on President Donald Trump's cabinet nominees at the U.S. Capitol. And some Republicans are working to drum up support for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Health and Human Services Secretary. And they're also working to get that support for Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. Both faced questioning last week. Other Republicans are challenging those appointments. Education Secretary nominee Linda McMahon and Labor Secretary nominee Lori Chavez Durimer do not have confirmation hearings set just yet. Today, Durham City Council will vote on a pay structure for police and firefighters. City staff say the changes are needed because market adjustments last year resulted in salary disparities. Now, specifically, some lower ranked employees' pay surpassed some higher ranked employees, and the adjustments would be minor. They would include a 0.7% increase for fire truck drivers, 1.1% for police sergeants, 0.9% for police lieutenants, and 0.3% for police captains. The vote will happen at City Council's meeting at 7 o'clock tonight. Your time is 8:10. Remembering plane crash victims, a highly regarded flight attendant died in D.C. Hear from a woman whose life he touched. Plus, a runway plane fire. We're going to show you more of this video here and explain what went wrong.
And we're looking at fog this morning in downtown Raleigh. This, of course, camera is way up high, but looking down toward Fayetteville Street, kind of hard to see it. I'll show you where the fog will be thickest when you head out the door coming up. 8:13, and we're watching fog in some parts of the viewing area, but not everywhere. Fayetteville, our southern counties, our eastern counties have been the areas that we've seen the thickest fog this morning. There's some light fog there in Apex. Chapel Hill looks just fine, and so does Durham. Everything north of Raleigh and west of Raleigh looks good. But notice what's happened here in Raleigh. We have this thick deck of clouds, and some of that has moved all the way to the ground, and so it would be fog. And so we're dealing with that this morning, certainly. Along the I-95 corridor and in our southern counties is where the fog is thickest this morning. We're likely seeing the very thickest fog of the morning right now. As we get into 9, 10, 11 o'clock, that fog will start to dissipate a bit. But it's below a quarter of a mile for Fayetteville, Clinton, and Goldsboro, around a quarter mile in Rocky Mount. We're also seeing some of that now from Raleigh eastward as well. But over toward the airport, we're not really seeing that fog. So here's what's going on. We have the warmer air that's going to be surging northward over the next couple of days. But a warm front will start to push southward. And of course, the cool air is here. The warm air is here. This front's going to bobble up and down across our area over the next few days, really changing our temperatures. So we're going to get some wild temperature swings. Tomorrow, near a record of 74 as the warm front moves northward. And then on Wednesday, as the front moves southward, our high will only be 55. Then it will lift back northward on Thursday, bringing us back into the 70s. So we're going to see that kind of on and off during the week. We'll see another cold, just quick cold day again on Saturday as well. Along this front, there'll likely be some light rain, especially for Wednesday night and then again on Thursday night. Eventually, this cold front will come through and bring us a few light showers, but none of that's likely to be very heavy. 20% Wednesday, 30% Thursday, 20% on Friday. So not a whole lot of rain with this, anywhere from a tenth to, say, a quarter of an inch. Talk about inches. They've seen feet of snow in California along the Sierra Nevada. Chris is coming up with a look at atmospheric rivers and if we really cared, how it could affect us here. Again, big ups and downs in our temperatures for really the entire week, Ken.
Very busy in the traffic center right now. We're going to start with what we're seeing this morning right there in West Raleigh, this overturned vehicle. The exit ramps on Wade Avenue to 440 eastbound. Take a look at these live pictures coming in courtesy of our crew right there in the scene, Brett Neese and Charles Bradley. You can see that overturned semi in the ditch. Traffic is getting through on the Beltline proper, but those exit ramps on Wade Avenue onto 440 eastbound completely blocked this morning. So as we widen out the view, come back here into the WRAL Traffic Center, you can see you have a couple of options, either Edwards Mill Road or Blue Ridge Road. Just get off and that'll work your way around the situation that's happening there on Wade Avenue. The other big story this morning, the huge foggy conditions that we're seeing to the point where we just got reports of a crash shutting down completely US 1 coming in from Youngsville on Brake Union Church Road at Capitol Boulevard. I'm working to get some more information about this. As soon as I know, I'll let you know how this is going to continue to affect your morning commute. But Lewisburg Road might be your alternate route coming in from Youngsville this morning. As we isolate the Beltline this morning, you can see the traffic building on the southern loop of the Beltline as well as the northern loop. And of course, the other big story, the foggy conditions. Here's a live look at I-87 and Smithfield Road in Knightdale. Those are the lanes coming into the capital city. You can barely see the traffic as it moves onto that interstate this morning. So keep that in mind as you're about to head out. Some of the major routes coming into the capital city, you're just looking at a 5-minute delay from US 1 in Wake Forest. It's a 4-minute delay coming in from Nidell, even with those foggy conditions. Most of the routes in the Bull City are free and clear, but we are seeing a little bit of a delay going into the Bull City this morning. You're just looking at a 3-minute delay. You're getting ready to head out the door. Always tune us in on the radio, 101.5 HD3. We'll keep you updated anywhere in the Triangle.
To the day since a disastrous train crash and toxic crash in East Palestine, Ohio. These are a couple of images from that. Today is also the first time since then that there are new lawsuits out. They'll be made public later today that allege people died because of this crash. As it goes out public, there are 7 wrongful death claims filed against Norfolk Southern Railroad, including the death of a 1-week-old baby. So it is alleging that the railroad botched the cleanup as well, failing to warn people about the health risks and if something more serious could develop in the future. A spokesperson for Norfolk Southern couldn't comment on this active lawsuit. The railroad has agreed to a $600 million class action settlement with the people who lived or worked within 20 miles of that derailment. But as part of the settlement, the railroad has not admitted any wrongdoing.
I want to tell you about this. The FAA investigating this, a United Airlines flight catching fire just before takeoff, and that forced passengers to evacuate the plane. The plane was set to leave George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston and was set to go to New York. More than 100 passengers and 5 crew members were aboard this. They all needed to use the emergency slide to get off the plane.
Seeing the smoke off the wing was really scary, and then seeing the intensity of everyone just trying to get off the plane orderly was a lot.
Now, despite all this, no one was injured. Investigators say an engine issue was reported before takeoff. Dozens of senior level employees at the U.S. Education Department are now on paid administrative leave. A union official says at least 55 employees were placed on leave, and that number is expected to grow. Sources say the department sent letters to employees, and they were informed their email accounts were being suspended, but they would continue to receive their paychecks for an indefinite period. The agency is the latest to be affected by the Trump administration's efforts to weed out DEI programs within the government. An atmospheric river brings feet of snow to the west this week. Meteorologist Chris Michaels explains what this is. And, well, Chris, are we going to see any local impact here?
Well, probably not from this particular system, but we do often see atmospheric rivers. I was actually kind of surprised to see that. Let's talk about what these things are, though. It's a long, narrow band of moisture that flows on land. And in the case of the western U.S., they've got really complex terrain, which is going to help them see a lot of rain and a lot of snow, as Chris was mentioning. But we looked back at a study in 2020 that shows the frequency of these atmospheric rivers in the winter. You can see they're most frequent in the west, but also as you go from the Gulf Coast to the East Coast. So we could use one of those, as we have 86% of the state that's currently in a drought. Here's what this one is going to do. You notice that green being the deeper moisture that's coming in. There's your atmospheric river, and that moisture stretching all the way back to Hawaii and moving into the western U.S., which is why they're going to see a whole lot of rain out of this, including in parts of the area that saw those wildfires over the past few weeks. But all that moisture along the Sierra Nevada and the Cascades, that's what's going to lead to a lot of snow. They averaged 33 feet of snow on Donner Summit. That's along the Sierra Nevada. So definitely an interesting case going from coast to coast. Chris?
Yeah, it is fascinating. All right. Thank you, Chris. A case involving 2 murdered children in foster care brought the gaps in North Carolina's child welfare system to light. WRAL's new documentary exposes how the state's foster care system failed to protect 2 adopted children. These are children police say were abused and killed by their adoptive mother. Blake and London Devon were adopted by Avante Devon as kids. She is now facing murder charges in connection with their deaths. And WRAL investigative documentary reporter Kristen Severance interviewed me for our latest doc because I've reported on this case from the beginning. She also talked with social workers and biological family members of the victims.
They died. They went from one home into foster care, got adopted, and then died.
Someone needs to be held accountable because Avante Devon is not the only one at fault here.
And that's just a small piece of the documentary. It uncovers how the foster care system is structured, funded, and how it failed to protect the children it was meant to save. Watch Broken, Foster Care in North Carolina, Thursday at 7:30 on WRAL. We'll also have an extended version of the documentary on WRAL.com. A woman who lives near Washington, D.C. says she's mourning a flight attendant who died in last week's mid-air collision. She says she traveled a lot for work, and he made her trips a little brighter. Ian Epstein died aboard Flight 5342. Elise Cruz recorded photos and video back in September 2023. They show her baby Walker on a flight where Ian was working. She then reshared them to social media a week, not too long after the accident happened, and Walker is now 2 years old.
After my son was born, one of his first flights, Ian was the flight attendant on. He was staffing. He gave my son some extra special attention and love, and it was just really cool.
Both Cruz and others who knew Ian Epstein remember him as a man who made people feel seen and loved his job. He was a father of two. Kendrick Lamar and Beyonce are among the big winners at this year's Grammy Awards. Lamar won 5 Grammys, including Record of the Year and Song of the Year for his hit, Not Like Us. The crowd even sung along with him. It's the start of a big year, a week, I should say, for Lamar, because he'll be performing at the Super Bowl halftime show on Sunday. Beyonce won 3 Grammys, including Album of the Year for Cowboy Carter. It's the first time Beyonce has taken home that award. Chaperone was another of the night's big winners. She won the award for Best New Artist. Your time is 8:23. Trump's trade fallout. How Mexico, China, and Canada are retaliating after President Trump imposed tariffs on their goods.
As you get into your car, tune to WRAL News Plus on your radio. In Raleigh on 99.3 FM. In Durham, 96.5 FM. And everywhere on 101.5 HD3.
Good morning. Your time now is 8:26. I'm Chris Levingood. We begin with Ken Smith because a bit of a mess out there right now, Ken.
Yeah, particularly on that ramp from Wade Avenue to 440 eastbound. We're talking about an overturned semi that happened just in the last hour and a half or so. We've been monitoring it. Take a look at these live pictures coming into our newsroom. You can see what I'm talking about. You can see the workers trying to figure out what to do in terms of uprighting this. This is in the ditch right there, right off of that Wade Avenue ramp to 440 eastbound. You can see traffic is getting through proper on the Beltline itself, but if you're trying to get on Wade Avenue to get to 440 eastbound, I'll let you know how to get around it at the bottom of the hour over on Fox 50.
Ken, we have some fog out there, but not everywhere. Wilson and Fayetteville, very foggy this morning. Definitely our south and eastern towns are a bit foggier than, say, Durham, where we're just seeing partly cloudy skies. Temperatures are in the low 40s. Fayetteville, Clinton, Goldsboro, Rocky Mount, all seeing visibility low enough to be fog. We're seeing some of that in parts of Wake County as well. Dense fog advisory along the I-95 corridor and in our southern towns. And, of course, that lasts until 10 o'clock this morning. Gradually, we'll start to see this dissipating, but you can see just how thick it is there in Wilson. Our visibility, of course, is low across the area. Our temperatures this afternoon likely to climb into the low 70s in some places.
This morning, Governor Josh Stein is expected to announce his budget proposal for Helene recovery in western North Carolina. Stein will be in Henderson County to unveil the plan. Republicans and Democrats say more help is needed, but they cannot seem to agree on how to fund it. Next on Fox 50, how President Trump's proposed tariffs will affect your wallet. And then next on Today, Amy Schumer is in Studio 1A to chat about her new Netflix movie, Kinda Pregnant.
Now, breaking news from WRAL. Coverage you can count on.
We're following that breaking news of this overturned tractor trailer on those Wade Avenue exit ramps to 440 eastbound. I'll let you know how to get around the backups that's forming.
Dense fog advisory, mainly for our eastern and southern counties. I'll show you what it will look as you're headed out.
Plus, trade war fears. The talks happening today as Mexico and Canada's leaders retaliate toward the U.S. Plus, what President Trump's tariffs mean for you. We're also talking about Helene relief. The announcement coming from western North Carolina today, aiming to provide help to the people devastated by Helene. A lot of people still need that help, but we'll be covering that today here on WRAL News. Thanks so much for joining us here. I'm Chris Levingood. If you've been watching this entire morning, you'll notice that Dix Park was a lot foggier than it is now, so things are actually clearing up a little bit there. Elizabeth Gardner is tracking the dense fog advisory right now. Some improvement, Elizabeth.
Yeah, starting to see a little bit there in Raleigh. It was interesting because it's been pretty foggy along the I-95 corridor and down to our south. Gradually, a little bit of that crept into Raleigh. Now it's starting to creep out again. Gradually, we'll see some improvement, but right now, now, the visibility is low in a lot of places. Fayetteville, Clinton, Goldsboro, up to Rocky Mount. We never saw the visibility really drop in the western part of Wake County, but it has definitely in eastern Wake County. Starting to improve the visibility, though, as we take a look down Fayetteville Street toward Memorial Auditorium. We can see it just fine. So starting to see some fog lifting here. 42 is the temperature around the Triangle. It's a chilly 36 in Roxborough, 38 in Southern Pines, 42 in Rocky Mount and in Goldsboro. Hour by hour, we'll see that sunshine appearing before lunchtime, and even earlier than already seeing some sunshine in our counties that didn't end up seeing any fog. Temperature climbs up to nearly 70 degrees for this afternoon, and tomorrow we could be close to a record, but I'll show you why it won't stay that way. Coming up, Ken.
Elizabeth, at 8:31, we're staying on top of that breaking news of an overturned tractor trailer on those Wade Avenue exit ramps to I-440 eastbound this morning, and that's where we find WRAL's Brett Neese. He's been on the scene for the better part of an hour now. Set the scene for us, Brett, and let us know what's happening now.
Look, and this is a big deal for anybody that takes Wade Avenue eastbound to try to get to 440 eastbound. I'm going to step out of the way and show you this tractor trailer that overturned a couple of hours ago. It is carrying some sort of weed killer, an herbicide, and they've managed to get a few pallets out of the back of the truck. But you see those two workers there at the end of the truck. They have some sort of saw and some other tools. You can see where the back door is actually, there's a jaggedness there to the end of the trailer. That is broken off there. That happened because of the crash, and so they're trying to cut the rest of that off of this trailer before they can turn this trailer right side up. They have a couple of tow truck crews out here. They'll be able to do that quickly once they believe that this trailer is in a much more secure spot. But until then, it's going to be quite a while before they can really get this out of here. We're working to learn how that driver is doing. It appears that they should be okay, but we're going to get some confirmation on that soon. But Wade Avenue eastbound to try to get to 440 east, if you take that this morning, you're going to need an alternate route, Ken, for at least the next couple of hours.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're listening to us on the radio right now, just coming on I-40 eastbound, as we widen out the view, here's what we're talking about. You can exit on Blue Ridge Road, but if you prefer, you can also exit on Edwards Mill Road right there by the Lenovo Center, and you work your way around Wade Avenue this morning. The other big story, the foggy conditions we've been seeing this morning. WRAL Storm Tracker is out there this morning to show you exactly what we're talking about in terms of the foggy conditions that we're seeing. Right now, he's driving around Wake County. Right now in the capital city, we're not seeing too much of a fog right now where he is right now, but we'll keep an eye on that, courtesy of the WRAL Storm Tracker and photographer Michael Joyner. This is the other breaking news we're following here. Two vehicle crash shutting down the southbound lanes of Capitol Boulevard. This is near Wake Union Church Road, way up there in northern Wake County, close to Youngsville, just north of Wake Forest this morning. So if that's part of their commute coming in from Youngsville, you might want to stay on Main Street or just take Highway 96 or Zebulon Road as alternate routes coming into the capital city. So just keep that in mind if you're about to head out. Really, we're seeing the usual congestion building on the southern loop of the Beltline as well as the northern loop of the Beltline. Many of you use I-540 as an alternate route. You're looking maybe at a 3 to 5 minute delay. But keep in mind, on 540, you still have traffic lights that's adding to the congestion as well. You're getting ready to head out the door this morning. Tune us in on the radio, 101.5 HD3. You can listen to us anywhere in the Triangle.
Today, President Donald Trump will meet with the leaders of Canada and Mexico, and that'll happen hours before new tariffs are set to effect. Now, those tariffs could mean higher prices for you at the grocery store. And as WRAL's Kelsey Coffey explains, some industries in our state could take a hit too.
One of the ways we could really see the impacts of those tariffs here in North Carolina is through the auto industry. The North Carolina Automobile Dealers Association here and so many other groups are bracing for this change. President Trump is putting a 25% tariff on imports from Mexico and Canada. Now, those countries plan to put tariffs on the products we sell to them. Today, we could learn just how high those tariffs could be. NC State economist Mike Walden says North Carolina exports up to $13 billion worth of products to Canada and Mexico every year.
That would mean that those auto parts that we make, that a lot of which go to Mexico for assembly, would have a tax on it. a tariff on it. We also sell pharmaceuticals, North Carolina does, to both countries, chemicals, et cetera.
Walden predicts these tariffs could lead to higher inflation. We could see higher prices at the grocery store and maybe even at the pump if oil from Canada is included in these tariffs. And those tariffs will go into effect tonight at midnight. Kelsey Coffey, WRAL News in Raleigh.
Today, Governor Josh Stein is expected to announce his budget proposal for Helene recovery in western North Carolina. Stein will be in Henderson County this morning to unveil that plan. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle say more help is needed, but they can't seem to agree on how to fund it. We spoke with one volunteer who says this is not a partisan issue. She says thousands of people need answers now.
Over in western North Carolina, around Asheville and Swannanoa and Black Mountain, people are still having to live in tents. Folks are trying to get them campers, RVs, heated tents, anything that can be done.
Now, Stein is expected to make his announcement at 11 o'clock this morning. And of course, WRAL will be covering that announcement online and on the air. Just tune into our newscast from 4 to 7:30 this evening for the full breakdown of what's included in the Helene recovery plan. New this morning, Goldsboro police say that a man is in critical condition because he was shot while trying to break into a home. Officers were called to a shooting at a home in West Oak Street just after 5:30 last night. Now, at the same time, a man who was shot arrived at UNC Health Wayne. Police determined the man was shot while trying to break into a home, but no one else was injured. Investigators say the man knew at least one person in the house. Officers say the shooting was an act of self-defense. The Wake County Sheriff's Office wants you to come forward if you know anything about a shooting that killed a man. Investigators say 38-year-old Sean Rouse was shot in the driver's seat of a car and was found on Stag Trail near Wendell on Saturday. What you're seeing right here is video from the WRAL Breaking News Tracker, and it shows two cars that appear to have crashed into each other. Now, it's not quite clear which car Rouse was driving or whether the driver of the other car was involved in the shooting. But deputies do believe this was a standalone situation and there is no threat to the public. They're asking anyone with information about the shooting to call investigators. In Philadelphia, investigators believe they found the black box of a medical plane that crashed into a neighborhood. The plane nosedived less than a minute after takeoff before exploding Friday night. Investigators say that injured 22 people, and 5 of them are in the hospital, including 3 in critical condition. Andre Howard's 10-year-old son was hospitalized because he was struck in the head by metal.
The way it landed, it was only because he laid on his sister. It landed right on the right side of his head.
He was protecting his sister.
Yes, and he's my superhero.
It's your superhero.
He's my superhero.
It's a good brother right there. All 6 victims on the plane were killed, and that includes a girl returning home to Mexico after receiving treatment in Philadelphia. A 7th person who has not yet been identified was killed while in a vehicle on the ground during the crash. Today, the Army Corps of Engineers will start clearing the wreckage from the mid-air collision in D.C. The Coast Guard will help out in this effort. It'll start with the removal of the remnants of the jet from the Potomac River, and then after that, they'll switch their focus to the debris from the military helicopter. The salvage operations are happening as authorities continue to search for the victims. 67 people are thought to be dead, and so far, 55 bodies have been identified. Today, we expect to learn a little bit more about the future of the Durham Convention Center. The Board of County Commissioners meets today to review the findings of a feasibility study. Now, the study suggests Durham needs to completely rebuild the convention center if it wants to be competitive with other cities for events. That could also include a new on-site hotel. The board's work session starts at 9 o'clock this morning. Eno River State Park is expanding by 200 acres. The State Department of Natural and Cultural Resources says the acquisition process started in 2021. The addition includes a 4-mile walking trail, and that surrounds the only surviving dirt speedway from NASCAR's 1949 inaugural season. An official ribbon cutting to celebrate the expansion is planned for this spring. Your time this morning is 8:40. Justin Baldoni is stepping up his case. A look at what the actor shared publicly as evidence in his case against Blake Lively. Plus, call it a basketball bombshell. How fans are reacting after 2 of the NBA's biggest stars were traded for each other over the weekend. And you know what? Warm temperatures are going to return as you are taking live a look here at Wilson right now, the Whirly Gigs. Meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner tells us the 2 days that we're going to see near record highs, they're approaching.
It's 8:43. We do have a dense fog advisory in effect for around another hour or so. Our southern counties, our eastern counties most heavily affected. We did see a little patchy fog make its all the way into downtown Raleigh, but it is on its way out at this point. Still a good bit of fog here in Fayetteville and really all the way up toward Wilson and Rocky Mount. 42 is our temperature around the triangle, and we're looking at temperatures in the mid-40s in Fayetteville. Rocky Mount and Wilson, Goldsboro, all seeing fog now. Quarter-mile visibility or lower is where we would consider it fog. Smithfield, Goldsboro, as I said, Irwin, Fayetteville, Clinton, all seeing that fog still remaining across the area. This is a look at Futurecast, though, and you can see how that fog is patchy right up until around 11 o'clock, and then it dissipates. Still a little bit of that lingering past lunchtime near the Virginia line, but most of us will see some nice clearing here over the next couple of hours. Donna Richardson sent us this shot of Wendell as we started to see the clouds rolling in yesterday. You know, it was nice and sunny right around lunchtime, and then it got a little cloudy and cool. Go to WRAL.com/reported and send us your photos. We love to see them. 37 in Roxborough, 38 Southern Pines, temperatures in the low to mid 40s elsewhere around town. Once that cloud cover moves on out, it's going to be a warm afternoon. 69 in Raleigh and Durham and 70 degrees in Fayetteville. Tomorrow, even warmer. Temperatures in the low to mid 70s. We'll be close to a record high, but then we're going to go on a roller coaster ride with the temperatures. 74 tomorrow, but 55 for the high Wednesday, and then 74 on Thursday. That's all thanks to a warm front that's going to move north to south across our area. For today, we're on the warm side of that front. It's up to the north, but that front will slip southward, putting us into the cool sector of the storm, and then lift back northward again on Thursday. So really changing that temperature pretty dramatically. Along with that front, we may see a few isolated showers on Wednesday night, and then again Thursday night when the cold front comes through. We take a look at our temperatures. Again, roller coaster ride really all week long. Near records on Tuesday, chilly Wednesday, 74 Thursday, almost 70 on Friday, and then back into the 50s again Saturday, Ken.
All right, happening now in the WRAL Traffic Center. We're staying on top of that breaking news there of an overturned tractor trailer. We're talking about these exit ramps from Wade Avenue onto 440 eastbound. Take a look at your screen and let you know what these are the live pictures coming into our newsroom this morning, courtesy of photographer Charles Bradley. You can see that overturned semi into the ditch right there. You can see traffic is getting by on the Beltline proper, but those Wade Avenue ramps to 440 eastbound completely shut down. As we come back here into the WRAL Traffic Center, as we widen out the view, this is what I'm talking about in terms of the delays that I'm seeing there on Wade Avenue. You have a couple of options. You can exit on Blue Ridge Road right here, or you can exit on Edwards Mill Road. Two options that will get you around what's happening on Wade Avenue. Updating a story that we just shared with you a little while ago, the southbound lanes of Capitol Boulevard have reopened as a result of a two-vehicle crash, but you can still see the lingering delays right there on Capitol Boulevard, just north of Wake Forest. I would recommend staying on Main Street or even Zebulon or Highway 96 as alternate routes if you want to continue to avoid the slowdowns that we're seeing there on Capitol Boulevard. In terms of the other major routes coming into the capital city, again, US 1, Capitol Boulevard, you're looking at a 5-minute delay. Over in the Bull City, really relatively no delays to report coming in to Durham this morning.
All right, thank you, Ken. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth will travel to the southern border today. This will be his first trip since taking office. Hegseth will meet with military members of Joint Task Force North. They're working to crack down on illegal immigration along the U.S.-Mexico border. The Pentagon is preparing to deploy roughly 1,000 troops to help Border Patrol agents. Hegseth says he will call upon reservists, National Guardsmen, and active duty personnel to help with the mission. President Donald Trump fired the director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau over the weekend. Rohit Chopra was reportedly notified of his termination in an email from the White House Saturday. He later announced his departure in a social media post, which included a letter addressed to Trump. President Biden appointed Chopra in 2021, and his term was supposed to run through late next year. During his time at the agency, Chopra worked to target junk fees. Ontario liquor stores are banning U.S. alcohol. That's because of President Trump's tariffs on Canada. According to Ontario leadership, the ban will begin tomorrow. The Liquor Control Board of Ontario controls all alcohol sales to restaurants, bars, and stores in the province. The organization says it will also take U.S. products out of its catalogs. That way, retailers can't order or restock those items. Today will be Michael Easley Jr.'s last day as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of North Carolina. He announced his last week that he was stepping down after more than 3 years in that role. Easley called it an honor to serve, saying, quote, "Together we helped drive down violent crime, turbocharged white-collar prosecutions, protected civil rights, and stemmed the tide of narcotics into our communities," end quote. Easley was nominated in 2021 by President Joe Biden. President Trump will nominate his successor.
Happening right now in the WRAL Live Center, Secretary of State Marco Rubio's first trip as a U.S. diplomat was to the Panama Canal, where he met with the president. And you see that photo that just happened just a little while ago. Met with the foreign minister there as well. President Donald Trump says the U.S. needs to retake control of the canal. So Rubio was on message in a news conference that just wrapped up a few minutes ago. His argument is a threat from China's influence and control. Panama's president says his country's sovereignty over the canal is not up for discussion. Rubio is on his way to San Salvador in about 45 minutes.
Yeah, but watching that development. Thank you, Jeff. Protecting some of North Carolina's most vulnerable children.
So children aren't spending 5, 6, 7, 8 years in foster care, often moving home to home to home. It's just not okay, because in the end, we end up with really damaged people.
Tonight at 6 o'clock, WRAL Investigates sits down with a former licensed foster parent who feels the system is broken. She's also part of a federal lawsuit to fix it. The effort to protect our most vulnerable children, that's tonight at 6 o'clock. The 67th Grammy Awards were last night in Los Angeles, and fire there destroyed more than 16,000 homes. And the fire's still burning. And firefighters were recognized for their hard work during that time last night. Here's David Daniel.
The Grammy Awards featured multiple appeals to help fire-plagued Los Angeles and tributes to the city, including Kendrick Lamar, who won 5 Grammys, including Record and Song of the Year for Not Like Us.
The people and the families out in the Palisades and Altadena, this is a true testament that we're going to continue to restore this city.
Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars did some California dreaming before winning Best Pop Duo or Group Performance for Die With a Smile.
Trans people are not invisible. Trans people deserve love. The queer community deserves to be lifted up.
Other appeals by winners included Shakira dedicating her Best Latin Pop Album Grammy to
all my immigrant brothers and sisters.
Global Impact Award winner Alicia Keys praised the diversity of voices.
DEI is not a threat, it's a gift.
And Best New Artist winner Chappell Roan wished that record labels
would offer a livable wage and health care, especially to developing artists.
Benson Boone kicked off a memorable set of performances by Best New Artist nominees, and an all-star tribute to the late Quincy Jones included students from 2 schools destroyed in the Los Angeles fires.
Cowboy Carter, Beyonce.
A stunned Beyonce became the first black woman in more than 50 years to win a country Grammy.
Wow, I really was not expecting this.
Then LA firefighters received a standing ovation before calling Beyonce back on stage to cap the night with her first ever Album of the Year award.
I just feel very full and very honored. It's been many, many years.
In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
Beyonce won 3 Grammys last night, pushing her record career total to 35. Other big winners included Sabrina Carpenter, Charlie XCX, and CeCe Winans. A pretrial conference is scheduled for today in the case between It Ends With Us stars Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. Over the weekend, Baldoni's lawyers posted court documents related to the lawsuit online. The website contains hundreds of pages of court filings, including text screenshots between the actors. Lively has requested the court issue a gag order against Baldoni's attorney. Lively accused Baldoni of sexual harassment on the set of a movie and that he tried to retaliate against her. Baldoni has denied these claims and says Lively sought to destroy his career. This one just shook social media yesterday. Basketball fans in shock after 2 of the NBA's biggest stars were traded for each other. The LA Lakers have acquired Luka Doncic from the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Anthony Davis over the weekend. Doncic, who is only 25, is considered one of the greatest European players ever, and Davis is a 10-time All-Star. Fans in Dallas protested the trade, and some call it the worst trade in NBA history. Got a check on traffic and weather coming up in just a second.